rather than leave something on the table that's a lot of money that we could have discussed it. So if that's okay.
Sure, and our meeting, if we plan to adjourn by 9:30 or 10, so say it was, we say 10, then we should probably wrap up this conversation by 8:30, is that correct? Or 9, but you need about an hour?
I can get through my presentation in 30 to 40 minutes. It really just depends on
Okay.
the breadth of the questions and the nature of the questions.
Right.
Well, previously said you could do it in 30 without questions.
Okay, we'll try to make that
Just
20.
need a little bit.
By the time we get to 30, we'll all be asking questions, so, okay. All right, so trustee Menta made a suggestion.
Public fire protection.
Do you want to make a
Public
motion?
fire protection fees to the water utility bills.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to move them up?
Oh, I move to amend the agenda to move item D, 3D first, 3B second, 3C third, 3E fourth, 2A, 2B, and then 3F. Well, actually, 3F is important too.
That's
Just not
probably your
money
biggest
anymore.
one.
All right, let's go 3D, I'm sorry,
Just do one for now.
just 3D. Let's
There we
start.
go. We're gonna, so you make a motion to move 3D up right at
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So now we will discuss consider pursuing other revenue opportunities and changes. 3D, add public fire protection fees to the water utility bill. Wow.
Has everybody read the memo?
Yes.
So I don't need to summarize it?
No.
Is there a motion? I mean, because I can go into summarize the memo, but if you've read it, I can be as efficient
Give
as
us
you
a
would like.
second to look at it.
We might, I don't remember everything.
I think you
Just wanna
really
give
do.
really brief.
Okay, high-level summary. Diversification of revenues. Water utility fees associated with recovery of infrastructure costs incurred by the utility to oversize the system's water mains and in order to accommodate the installation and use of fire hydrants within the community. These are the fees that are identified by the Public Fire Service Commission as being necessitated to be charged separately. Historically, we've always kept these on the tax bill because there's been a feeling that there's a tax deduction. Secondly, moving the charges prior to this year would have had a result in a levy limit reduction. Both of those situations changed with the 2017 tax reforms, and Act 59 of the state's budget now exempts these things. There is, of course, going to be a component of this, similar with the refuse utility, that it may be minimally regressive. I'll say minimally because I don't think it's going to be as dramatic of an impact as if we had the same kind of discussion with our refuse collections. So every other community, with the exception of Greendale, puts these fees on the utility bills. Again, the last page of the draft following plan, or one of the last ones with the water, shows that 20 community comparison. So I'd like to say we're ranked lower because we've got better, but we're ranked lower because we don't charge the same thing on our water. So that's kind of the nutshell on it.
Is that the last page of the long-range financial plan?
It would be page 38 of the plan. The one that has this kind of chart on it.
Okay. Where's
And again, every community with Greenfield on this has these fees as part of their water system charges.
Where's the hydrant fee on this chart? I don't see the hydrant.
It's embedded in the water costs
Okay.
for water utility.
And how do you plan to allocate this 419 to the
By
utility?
meter size.
Okay.
That's how the PSC requires you to do it. You have two options, basically. You can pay it through property taxes or pay it on the utility charges through meter size, which is supposed to be a reflection of the amount of resources that you're drawing on the system. So it would be different charges, just like your normal meter charges are higher for bigger meters. The bigger the meter, the higher the utilities will also.
Trustee Mento.
Yeah, I guess I just looked at the number in the report. So I mean, this one to me is kind of similar to the refuse collection in that we're taking something currently under the property tax and moving it to a utility charge. I mean, in this case, it gives us room, we don't have to reduce our levy limit, so it gives us a little bit of room on the levy. You know, but that is still a net, if we were to use that, that would still be a net increase to residents, you know. Whereas if we do it under, so I guess my point is, I'm not sure how much we want to move to charges from the property tax. And if we do refuse, I mean, it's true we don't have the levy limit that we would get, but we do have some benefits in terms of being able to customize garbage services. So, but my question is, do we have some unused levy capacity, correct? I mean, do we really need additional levy?
We need additional expenditures.
To
Well, that's true.
me? Oh, I'm sorry.
And that's true.
Yeah, long-range plan shows we've got like about $1.5 million
We still have the
unused.
expenditure limit, so that if we had the levy, we
Well-
would be able to spend without using, so.
Yeah, you know, I think the bigger challenge this year, depending on the number of solutions that the board can consider for either diversification of revenues or reduction of expenditures and other costs, the biggest challenge is always expenditure restraint.
Right.
It's not so much the levy limit. The levy limit may come into play a little bit more than 10, 12 years from now. But, you know, I don't envision the board looking to authorize much more than 2-3% tax increases on average over that time frame. So, and that's, again, that's a stress test that the long-range plan model puts out there. You know, it's supposed to be a stress test. I think the goal is to do better than that.
So Mark, this came up during garbage too. I had a different perception of what we were being presented for revenue options. So different than just diversifying the property tax base. My assumption was we were going to be presented with things that would increase revenue, and then we discuss the next time about decreasing expenditures. In this situation, somewhat similar to the garbage collection utility, we're doing neither. We're not decreasing expenditures, we're not increasing revenue. So then what is the big benefit? As Trustee Amenta has said, first of all, wouldn't we need to lower your tax rate in order, I mean, I don't know if it's in the memo, but my concern is, as the residents that I've heard from, you keep moving things off the property tax and then you just use up that property tax. So they're getting double, they're just incurring more. It's just a natural force that, you know, you have more room in your taxing ability, and so you fill it with the expenditures because we have gaps. So I'm not interested in doing that. This is fire hydrants, correct? And that's not, to me, similar with garbage collection, because you have nothing to do with that. If there's a fire and it's public safety in your community, everyone should be paying equally. Now granted, it could be used default or whatever, but it's a public safety thing. And so a little different than your use of garbage or recycling, you know, who uses more. This is, I believe, in my opinion, it's a public safety, it should be borne by all of our residents. And the only way to really do that is by the property tax. Otherwise, if you do it by utility meter, you may be, you know, taxing more, they're using more water, but they're not, they've never had a fire. It's not a user fee.
It's not on a volume charge, it's based on the size of the meter.
Similar though, right? I mean,
Well, I
your
mean, you
meter's
would
bigger.
not need a 2-inch meter if you're using nominal water, right?
Right,
And
so,
nobody has a 2-inch meter, which is using nominal water across the.
right, so at this point, I don't support it. I don't feel there's a big benefit to the village to change it. If there's a secondary benefit, as I discussed with you on the phone, up to any of these, like it'll help with expenditure restraint,
Obviously,
will it?
anytime you take expenditures off the general fund, it helps expenditure restraint.
Because the expense is moving over to.
Right, and
So
because
this
it's
is not
fire,
a
it's-
general fund expense anymore.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, but I want to hear about that, because if we're just talking about,
They don't adjust our expenditure restraint down because we.
not for fire, it just got exempted.
No, that's levy
Levy
limit.
limit.
Expenditure restraint, as long as it's for a bona fide purpose, consistent with general accounting principles. And that's what many of our challenged communities, I mean, again, we've been pretty fortunate with having some flexibility with the expenditure restraint of recent times because we've had some significant redevelopment. And we've always been pretty hawkish on tax increases.
So can I just, it just dawned on me reading the fire budget for the new trustees, expenditure restraint, it took me a long time to understand, but basically the state says it's 60% of your net new construction plus CPI, correct? CPI in 2016 was 0. And so what that means is if your salaries are going up 2% every year, you're gonna need to cut, you can't, and you have no net new construction, your expenditures are set at what it is. So your 2%, you're gonna have to find a way to cut because you can't grow, you can't expend 2% more. So that's the expenditure restraint factor. And shifting, it appears that you can shift things off the expenditure level to a utility. So now you've opened up more
Capacity
room to absorb increases in salary if you don't have any net new construction and things like that.
Or increases in fire department charges,
Anything.
or all that list that we had the other day.
Right, and like the fire department, I know there's increases coming up. We're gonna have to absorb those if we don't have net new construction or we don't have a CPI that's favorable. We have to cut something in the future. Trustee Parker and then Trustee Menta.
I just have a question about the water main and how a resident would know what their water main is if you purchase a new home, and that would affect your rates based on your lot, right? I mean, if I'm understanding that correctly, if you're based on the size of your water main, so how do you know that as an average
Well,
resident?
it's besides your water meter, and I can just almost categorically tell you, except for the estate properties, everybody's got 5/8 to 3/4 inch meters for residential households.
So this affects,
So everybody's got the same cost because those are considered nominal size meters. PSC doesn't distinguish between fees for 5/8 or 3/4. It's really more of a community preference on what the community chooses to install. Now, when you get into the larger apartment buildings, they'll have 1 inch, 2 inch. Some of the bigger estates with multiple bathrooms and other amenities might have 1 inch, 2 inch. Bigger commercials are starting to get 2 inch or 3 inch. But 99.8% of the residential properties here have 5/8 or 3/4 with the same charge for everybody.
when we asked about, the regressive tax then, Trustee Margaret said that, in this situation, switching it, the bigger commercial properties and apartment buildings will get more costs distributed to them for this service. And my assumption is the residential apartment buildings the landlords pass it on to their tenants if their lease allows them to do that. That would be my concern. My second concern, I did hear from a resident who is here tonight, but commercial properties that don't already have it in their lease, that they pay water, but they pay the property taxes. And so now for that lease term, the landlord is then absorbing the cost of the water because it's going to increase and they can't pass it down because their lease is already signed. So those are the two things that I would have concerns about.
Yeah.
I mean, this fee, and it's probably gonna work out with $20 and other water utilities that you maybe get, but the hydrant fee, it's not very much. I mean,
How much is it?
like $20
$20 to $30 a quarter, depending on your water system.
Okay.
Why can't we just keep it in the tax bill?
Excuse me, it's my turn to
I'm
talk.
sorry.
The other thing we're talking about is moving some parking from the parking utility back to the general fund. So if we were to do that, or do those expenditures, would they
Those start
count back
counting.
towards the expenditure limit?
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, you
So
know,
a little bit of a shell game.
I think we need to look at, you know, all three of these comprehensively. And I'm not sure, you know, if we don't have a real need for room under the expenditure limit or the revenue limit for this year, I mean, I'm not sure why. I think we could, you know, study this a little bit more through the year and consider them for future years. Because the other question I had about expenditure limit, if we were to do this year, but we didn't use up all that expenditure amount, doesn't the expenditure limit go from the budget you used the last year? So would we lose it if we didn't, do we have to use it or we lose it?
Yeah, that's true. Now staff is attuned to that situation, and there are other ways that you can manage and try to preserve your capacity under the levy limit
You can switch one.
structure. Now again, the challenge with this is this requires Public Service Commission approval to make the change. It is administrative,